Well, I also want to say thank you to a lot of people because I was up in Massachusetts and feeling very, very far away from Anne. And if it hadn't been for all of you, it would have been much harder because I knew she was well taken care of and loved. And in her own words, what Anne said about this year in Eatonton was it was the best year of her life. And she even made a beautiful photo album of all the things that had happened since she'd been here to celebrate this beautiful year. But most of all, I want to thank my sister Joan for taking Anne in when she was in desperate circumstances. And Joan was in pretty desperate circumstances herself, having just moved and adopted a dog and things like that. But she took Anne in and gave her a loving and caring home for this past year, and was the big part of this best year of her life. And then there are people that I've been calling Anne's angels, which started with the Archangel Marcia, who rounded up Dottie and Alicia and Karen and Betty and Sandy, who ministered to Anne in more ways than I could count. And as Janet said, became medical missionaries as well. And she counted you all as her friends and loved you all. And just thanks to everybody here who supported Anne in so many ways, with phone calls and with cards, visits, and letters, and emails, and most of all with your prayers. I mean, I think Anne had more people praying for her, probably at least half the United States, actually, when you get right down to it. But these are her most faithful prayers right here. And I thank you for the gift of your presence here today to celebrate her life. But I want to share with you part of a letter that I wrote to Anne, because as some of you know, Anne used to be pretty hard on herself and reproach herself for what she saw as her shortcomings. And when she came a year ago, and we thought she was dying then, and then again a month ago, I wrote her a letter trying to tell her how I thought that God really saw her and all the things about her that gave God joy. And I'm not going to read the whole thing because it was 3 pages long, but I do want to read the part about her childhood. But I will just say, I mean, she was a person of deep faith and spiritual gifts, as we've heard. She was a talented teacher and a principal who loved her disadvantaged children and opened up things to them that they could never have imagined. She created, wherever she was, she always created a warm and lovely home on absolutely a shoestring. And she was outstanding in her role as a rent-a-daughter, which if you haven't heard that part of her life, it was fantastic. But what I want to share is the part of the letter that comes from our childhood, because it was Joy and Joan, 3.5 years top to bottom. And then along came Owen, and he was different. We didn't know what to do with him. And then came Janet. But the 3 of us were sort of the 3 musketeers, and Marcia was the 4th, running around the neighborhood in a pack. But what I said was, Dear Anne, the first memory of you that comes to my mind is of you scrambling up the decorative metal grill on the back door, and Mummy in hot pursuit going whack, whack, whack. And you have to know my mother. She hardly ever whacked anybody, so Anne must have done something really aggravating. I don't know what she was chasing you for, but it wasn't the first time or the last time. You were an active and spirited little handful. On the other hand, you could play quietly for hours. You were the best at cutting out paper dolls and acting out stories with them. And, I mean, her paper dolls were always perfect. I can't tell you how jealous I was. Nothing was ever bent. It was always beautiful. Her baby dolls were always dressed up. Her show dolls were always dust-free, unlike mine. But she loved them all and cared for them. And you were also the best at dress-ups and got so much pleasure from it, especially dressing up in your dance outfits. My mother made us tutus, and Anne actually wore hers completely out and just hung in rags because she danced so much. You were a good little dancer and acrobat and much more fearless than the rest of us when it came to climbing tall trees or hanging by your knees over the cement clothes yard. You could even hang by one leg, which gave everybody an excellent scare. It was like, hey, Anne, don't do it. You were also the inspiration behind our dramatic productions. You organized the scripts, the scenery, the costumes, and the music. And she got even the little children involved. And the one I remember the best is her production of Sleeping Beauty. And I don't think this is actually in Sleeping Beauty, but there was a place where there was a little treasure chest. and the child had to go and open it up and find the keys to fairyland. And here's this little girl. She opens it and she says, "Where are the keys to fairyland?" And so Anne called the performance to a halt, and everybody went running around looking for the keys, and then on it went. Just absolutely smooth. And then her lovely voice. I mean, she had the most beautiful voice, and she had an instinctive ability to harmonize. And I can't tell you how many hours she and I spent in the back seat of cars singing together. Singing and singing and singing. And I don't think any of you have heard her sing, but I have a tape of her singing. It's absolutely gorgeous. Anyway, Anne, I think you really made Mummy proud, because imagination and creativity were what she loved best, too. In fact, I actually think Mummy was proud that you were her wild child, who had a mind of her own and didn't take no for an answer. I think sometimes she wished she were better at that herself. And of course, you were the most beautiful sister, with your big dark eyes and shiny dark hair. We even called you Queen Anne. You had a sense of yourself that wouldn't be beaten down, although, as we all know, there were those who tried through her life to beat her down. You were a beautiful child, but also tough, an unusual combination of imaginative and dreamy, active and daring. I believe that God rejoiced in your beauty and the joy you took in physical activity, and blessed the talent and the creativity that you shared so generously and in so many ways all your life. You've made so many lives richer for knowing you. And I thank you and God bless you.